কি অবস্থা দিন?
Yes, so sir, should we start or should we wait for another 5 minutes?
Uh, Maybe we can wait for 5 minutes. It's Bangladesh. So, can you hear me, Dr. Din?
Yes, so sir, I can't hear you.
You cannot hear?
Oh, I can hear you, sir.
Okay. দিন দেখো তো, অন্যরা তো শুনতে পাচ্ছে।
Shahidul, can you hear me?
জিল্লুর কি শুনতে পাচ্ছে
Jillur,
আমাদের?
can you hear me?
স্যার আপনাদের দুজনকে শোনা যাচ্ছে,
শোনা যাচ্ছে।
দুজনকে শোনা যায়।
স্পিকারে কোনো প্রবলেম হতে পারে।
কার?
Jillur, can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
শুনতে পাচ্ছ জিল্লুর?
শুনতে পাচ্ছি স্যার।
ওকে ওকে, দ্যাটস গুড।
আমরা কি শুরু করব?
একটু কি কত 803 তো
হুম,
একটু 805 এ শুরু করি নাকি?
ওকে ওকে স্যার।
জিল্লুর বা দিন তোমাদের স্টুডেন্টদের বলছো নাকি? আমি তো আমার স্টুডেন্টদেরও বলছি কিছু।
হ্যাঁ, আমি বলছি কয়েকজনকে, সবাইকে বলা হয়নি।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, আমার স্টুডেন্টদের বলছি, আবার ওই যে চিটং ইউনিভার্সিটি, হাজী দানেশ,
আচ্ছা,
খুলনা ইউনিভার্সিটি এরকেও বলছি। দেখা যাক।
আমার কিছু স্টুডেন্ট জয়েন করেছে স্যার। I can see them.
অলরেডি 32 হয়ে গেছে, ভেরি গুড।
স্যার আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
ওয়ালাইকুম আসসালাম।
রবি নাকি?
জি স্যার।
বাহ, নাইস টু হিয়ার ফ্রম ইউ।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম স্যার।
মেহেদিও জয়েন করছে। ওয়ালাইকুম আসসালাম।
কেমন আছেন স্যার?
Thank you, Mehdi, for joining us. Sir, I think we should start. মানে লোকজন জয়েন করবে
ওকে,
পরে।
805। হ্যাঁ শিওর, 40 অলরেডি জয়েন করছে।
So, a very good evening to you all. It is with great pleasure and enthusiasm that I welcome you to our monthly webinar series hosted by the International Trade Center at Research and Policy Integration for Development, shortly RAPID. I am Dr. M.D. Din Islam, serving as the director of the center. The goal of this monthly webinars is to provide emerging researchers with a stage to showcase their work, share their insights, and engage in meaningful discussions on a range of development issues, particularly important for Bangladesh. So, this monthly webinar series is not just about presentations, it's about fostering a collaborative space where ideas can flourish and network can expand. We aim to create an environment where young researchers can not only receive valuable feedback on their work, but also build their lasting connections that will serve them throughout their careers. I extend my heartfelt appreciation to all participants for being a part of this event. Your virtual presence here today underscores the importance of nurturing the next generation of economists, researchers, and policy influencers. I'd like to encourage everyone to actively participate and contribute to the discussions, and especially to our young researchers and economic and development students here. I would like to say this is your platform. Seize the opportunity to share your ideas, seek guidance, and connect with fellow researchers who share your passion for making a positive impact through meaningful research. Thank you very much for joining us today. At this point, I would like to request Professor Dr. Abu Yusuf to deliver his brief welcome remark. Abu Yusuf, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Din Islam. Let me introduce myself. I am Abu Yusuf. I am basically economist by training. So I am teaching in the Department of Development Studies, Dhaka University, and also I am holding Executive Director, Rapid Research and Policy Integration for Development. I think it is a very good initiative to hear from the young economist. And we are focusing on evidence-based analysis, and not only analysis. The main objective of Rapid is to integrate the evidence-based research with the policy. That's the main issues. The newly established International Trade Center under Rapid, we, as mentioned by Dr. Dean, we want to do some research on contemporary issues, what is going on not only inside Bangladesh, also in the global areas. There are some issues like, what will happen after LDC graduation due in 2026, or, there are some emerging issues after 2026, and, development is a continuous and it's a dynamic issues. So continuously is changing. So the objective of this monthly webinar, that is, we'll be discussing something, and we not only, it's as mentioned by Dr. Dean, that it's not merely a presentation. So we are trying to make a debate on contemporary or on development issues, emerging issues related to international trade, social protection, and other issues, though the center is on international trade. There are some researchers. We have Zillur Rahman, our associate director. We have Robi and other research associates working in Rapid. And also we invited young researcher. We invited students from different departments, particularly from economics department, development studies department, from not only Dhaka University and also other universities, regional universities like Khulna University, Chittagong University, Haji Danish University. So this is in 2024. This is the first initiative. I think we'll be continuing this type of webinar, and we'll make it, I think, fruitful with your interaction, with your inputs. And I welcome the two young economists, those who will be presenting today, Nishat Tasnim Anika and Sajeda Akhtar. So after their presentation, definitely we'll have an interactive session, and at the end, hopefully it will be lively, and we'll have some learning out of this session. Thank you so much, Dr. Dean, and over to Dr. Dean.
Thank you so much, Yusuf sir. So let's, without making any further delay, let's start our paper presentation. We have two exciting topics and two young researchers. So I would like to first request Sajeda Akhtar to present her paper in next 20 minutes. Then we'll go to Nishat Tasnim Anika for her presentation for next 20 minutes. And if you have questions on the first presentation or second presentation, please write your question in chat box, and we will have the discussion section after two presentations. So we would like to give 20 minutes to each presenters. So I would like to first request Sajada Akhtar to start her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I also request two presenters to say few words about themselves. So their background, so audience will be able to know who you are and what is your area of interest. Just few words before starting the presentation. Sajada, please, over to you.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum and good evening, honorable moderator, fellow presenter, distinguished guests and participants. I'm Sajada Akhtar, lecturer of economics at Dhaka International University. First, let me apologize for the inconvenience I am getting today. I'm unable to turn on the video as my laptop is not supporting this system right now. So please excuse me. And my area of interest is I love to explore the areas of trade and labor economics related and environmental economics related areas. And I'm a young researcher. I have a lot of things to learn from you and other presenters. So that's it from my side. And let me start my presentation by first extending my gratitude to Rapid for giving me this opportunity to present my research at this platform on this monthly webinar series. And my paper presentation title is Exchange Rate Pass-Through to Inflation, an Empirical Analysis from Bangladesh Perspective. So without further ado, let me start the presentation. I'm sharing the screen. As we all know, from the very beginning, Bangladesh has been trying to pursue an active exchange rate policy by adopting a different exchange rate regime and devaluating its currency. In 2003, Bangladesh shifted its exchange rate regime to managed floating system to accelerate their export, reduce import, and ameliorate trade balances. In the first few months, although the trade exchange rate remained fairly stable, but in mid-2004, the exchange rate kept on depreciating, reaching its peak at Taka 84 per USD in 2018 from Taka 58. Ever since then, from 2018 to 2021, it remained fairly stable, but it has been fluctuating between 84 to 86 Taka per USD. If we see the relation between the exchange rate and consumer price index, we can see our nominal exchange rate, which is the unadjusted price ratio of a domestic and foreign currency. It was very high in 1973, but it kept on depreciating or devaluating after we changed our exchange rate regime to managed floating system. And along with this, our consumer price index is also rising, which we can see from the orange line here, and it is expected to rise in the upcoming years also. And if we see the recent monthly trend of the exchange rate, we can see our exchange rate is very high, which means our currency value is devaluating, and it has to. And at present, the exchange rate is 109 taka per dollar, and we are expecting it might have an impact on the recent inflationary trend of our country. And we can see a graph of the recent inflation trend of Bangladesh. And as of today, the general inflation rate has rose to 9.49%, along with the food and non-food inflation is also very high, which is 10.76 and 8.16%. Although our domestic exporters frequently demand currency devaluation as it will help them to stay competitive in the foreign market at the expense of increasing price level in the domestic country. But we know a devalued currency has lower purchasing power, which can increase the import cost and have a serious supply side effect by increasing the cost of production also. So to see the relation between the devaluation and increasing price level, we have to measure it from the pass-through effect, which helps us to measure the degree to which prices of imported and exported goods, along with the inflation, changes as a result of exchange rate change. So why do we care? Why it is so important for us to study this exchange rate effect, pass-through effect, as it will help us to framework and optimally monetary policy and trade policies like strategic tariff and adjustment of tax rate accordingly, and know the inflation dynamics or what is happening to the overall country. And given the dollar crisis, although many are suggesting to devalue its currency, but it will have a long run effect which will increase the price level also. So this study is a timely call. So we want a lower degree of exchange rate pass through, as it will lower degree of exchange rate pass through, as it will widely expected. It has much lower impact on the domestic prices and trade balances. Although several studies have been done as of today, but as of my knowledge, none of the studies has highlighted the issue of exchange rate pass-through to inflation, particularly in case of Bangladesh. These are the literature review. And my research objective was to find out whether there is any exchange rate pass-through effect to inflation or not. And some specific objectives was to measure the degree and speed of exchange rate pass-through to inflation, determine the long-run relationship among the variables, pass-through elasticity, and the speed of adjustment. For my research, I have taken data period from 1989 to 2022, and as a statistical tool, I have used EViews 10 and Data 14 program, and I have taken 4 variables for my research. One is CPI, which will help us to measure the consumer purchasing power. Nominal exchange rate, which is the unadjusted price ratio of domestic and foreign currency. US PPI as a proxy variable of world import price. And real GDP, it shows us the purchasing power of the country's people. Here are some basic description of our variable that I have chosen. For my methodology, I have used this model to estimate the elasticity variable, and I have taken them in logarithmic form, and NER variable has been estimated in dollar per taka unit. So if we are assuming if the elasticity value coefficient is 1, then we can see pass-through effect is complete, and if elasticity value is less than 1, we will say our elasticity is incomplete. Pass-through effect is incomplete. And for this study, I have applied 2 models. One is Engel-Granger 2-step co-integration, and another one is four variable VCM model. and as for my priori expectation, I'm expecting the NER value to be coefficient value to be negative, and others variable like world import price and real GDP price to be positive. First, I have done the unit root analysis test, which help us to measure the stationary state of the variable, and we can see all of our variable is not stationary at level but at first difference. For length selection criteria, we have, according to the length selection criteria, I have taken 2 lakhs for my model, as most of the variables are found significant at point at lag length number 2. Now I have applied angle-Granger two-step co-integration, and here we can see our residual or error term are stationary, which means there exists a long-run relationship among the variable, and our model is not spurious, which means our variables are not unrelated. And for here we can see our nominal exchange rate coefficient has found to be 89, which means a 1% decrease in the devaluating a currency will increase the price level to 89%. And as of our prior expectation, we have also found the expected sign, and they are significant in the long run co-integration test. But in the short run, our NER value is not significant. And our USPPI variable has been found to be, coefficient value has found to be a 49%, which means a 1% decrease in increase in wall input price. Decrease in wall input price will increase the increase in wall input price will increase the price level by 49% point. And according to the diagnostic test, our model is not serially correlated, don't have any heteroscedasticity problem, and is normally distributed. Then I have applied Johnson-Julia's co-integration test to find the is there any long-run association among the variables, and I have found one co-integrating equation where the max trace statistics and max eigenvalue is less than their critical value. So we can say there exists one co-integrating equation, and there is long-run association among the variables. Here is the VCM long-run variable model, and we can see our coefficient value has found here to be 76%, which means a 1% devaluation of currency will increase the domestic price level to a 76 percentage point. And our other variables and we found our expected sign in other variables also, which is positive here. And any increase in import price will increase the domestic price level to 87 percentage point. And our ECM value, which means the rate of adjustment to from our past to from any previous period disequilibrium, is 18 percentage point. And as of our diagnostic, from the diagnostic test, we can see there is no heteroscedasticity problem, and is normally distributed, and our model is not serially correlated. And our here is the short run estimate. And we can, after that, I have also applied VEC Granger causality test, and we can see there is bidirectional causality running from CPI to USPPI, and bidirectional causality also exists in case of nominal exchange rate and USPPI, which is the world import price. And any changes in real GDP can influence both NER and USPPI. which is shown here. Now let's see the impulse response function, where we can see any shock to any year can fluctuate all of the variables. And here we can see from the very beginning, CPI was quite high up to 2 quarters, and after that it start to decline but remain positive throughout the 10 quarters. And in case of NER, it shows NER value, it shows positive at first, but after 4 quarters, it exhibits a declining trend. However, the response of USPPI remains positive. USPPI remain positive, increasing to the shocks up to the 10 quarters, but real GDP is negative up to 6 quarters. Real GDP is negative up to 6 quarters. Then positive for the rest of the 10 quarters. Here is the line, green one. And according to the variance decomposition, there shows in the short run or quarter 2, a shock to CPI account for 96.66% variation of the fluctuation in the CPI, but continues to decline in the 4th, 6th, or 10 quarters. Likewise, a shock to NER can cause a 37% fluctuation in CPI and continue to rise in the rest of the 10 quarters. Therefore, it established that exchange rate devaluation of currency or in currency has an impact on our domestic price level, which I have found by studying these 2 models. And as for my policy recommendation, I recommend for the prudent management of the exchange rate and critically designing monetary policy rules that is capable of responding to the price through effect. And given the dollar crisis, we shouldn't devalue our currency at a greater rate. Instead, we can diversify our export basket to boost up our export earnings and give tax breaks on import, taking an import substitution policy, etc. Thank you for now.
Thank you so much, Sajida Akhtar, for your nice presentation. We will have questions on Sajida's presentation after presentation by Nishad. So I'd like to request Nishad Tasnimanika, Research Associate at Rapid, to present her paper. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm sharing the screen in a minute. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am Nisha Manika, currently working as a research associate at Rapid, and I have just completed my master's degree, Master of Social Science in Economics from University of Dhaka. And the title of my paper today is Effectiveness of Inflation Targeting in Emerging and Developing Asia, Panel Evidence. So I will share introduction. I'll go for introduction, motivation, objectives. Then I'll go on the research questions and review of literature. I'll describe the data and methodology and share the empirical findings of my paper. So before I proceed, I would like to quote one statement by Alan S. Blinder, which inspired me to take up this research, which is that having looked at the monetary policy from both sides now, I can testify that central banking in practice and is as much as art as science. Nonetheless, while practicing this art, I have always found the science quite useful. So this is my motivation of this paper. Basically, I wanted to have a look at the science behind the monetary policy. So let's go on to the introduction. First of all, we all know that there has been a series of shocks and pandemic and war, and especially the emerging and developing Asian countries have faced the challenges to mitigate inflation and combat the fiscal pressures. So one of the key macroeconomic objective for all the countries across the world is that the goal is to achieve price stability. So to achieve this goal, some of these countries have used a special policy called inflation targeting, which has become a really popular tool over the years. And it started back in 1990s, and then with New Zealand adopting the policy, and then the other advanced and developing countries gradually adopted this policy. So what is inflation targeting? This is basically a monetary policy where a central bank follows an explicit target that they have to announce to the public for the inflation for the medium term. So this is not a short-term targeting, this is a medium-term targeting. I would like to clarify this because there is a trade-off. We all know that there is a trade-off between the macroeconomic objectives like output and inflation targeting. So the countries do adjust for the short-term fluctuations in output growth. In the medium term, their primary target is inflation rate. So according to Michigan, there are several advantages and disadvantages of this policy from the central bank's point of view, which is that number one is that it ensures transparency and accountability of the authority. It focuses on domestic concerns and it gives the flexibility to the authorities. However, the disadvantages might be their outputs might get volatile because there is a trade-off between the targets, macroeconomic targets. Countries may face low growth, and countries may have to give accountability to its public if they experience or go through higher inflation. So we can see that in this snapshot that basically the advanced economies adopted inflation targeting in the 90s, and then gradually the developing economies gradually adopted this policy. So my motivation was that there is a heterogeneity in Asian countries. So although we know that the Asian countries are, from the previous slide, we can see that the Asian countries have adopted this in the early 2000s, not in the 1990s. So why not I did take up a research on the Asian countries as a whole. The reason is that there is a heterogeneity among the Asian countries. So the developed Asian countries, their problem is different, and the developing economies problems are different. So the developed countries are basically face the problems of low inflation and even sometimes deflation or slow economic growth. While the emerging and developing economies like India, Vietnam, and Indonesia, they are facing a higher inflation growth like food price rises, fuel price hikes, etc. So in this graph, I tried to show the trends of the heterogeneity among these countries. So we can see that the advanced economies face a pretty, in the yellow line, advanced economies face a pretty low inflation rate over the years, while the emerging and developing economies in the purple line face a pretty high inflation rate. So which is quite obvious. However, the emerging and developing Asia has a different trend than other emerging and developing economies. So these are the heterogeneous that I was talking about. So basically, even though my study suggests that it is a study of the emerging and developing Asian countries, however, this study is solely focused on the developing South and Southeast Asian countries based on the availability of data and similarity in their macroeconomic trends. So considering this adaptability of inflation targeting in different economic contexts, I put a focus on the emerging and developing Asia. And also there is another issue of the pursuit of economic growth in these economies. So I'll come to this later. So my research objective, the primary research objective of my paper is that I wanted to evaluate the effectiveness of inflation targeting in the EDAs from 2001 to 2021. And my research questions are: is inflation targeting effective in reducing the inflation rate in these countries? Whether it has an impact on the economic growth of these countries, and whether it affects the volatility of inflation and output growth. So let's go on to the literature review. So I have reviewed quite a few papers. However, I've just mentioned the significant ones. So in this table, I would like to draw your attention that if we look at the findings, there's not a central consensus between among the authors of these papers. The red boxes basically shows that these studies did not find any significant impact of inflation targeting in the countries of their studies, and the green boxes find that there has been an impact of these inflation targeting policies in these countries. So this is quite contradictory and not quite conclusive. So the summary of this literature review is that there has been a mixed conclusion, of course. While inflation targeting has been a success in some countries, however, it may come at the cost of sacrificing output growth and financial instability. And but it is important to note that there has been no study that has examined the efficiency of inflation targeting in the ED countries to date. And considering that there is the diverse structure of Asian economies that I have just talked about, and also very few researchers are here that I can show you that. There are very few researchers that solely focuses on the Asian countries only. I can find only one by Naqvi and Rizvi and Pathurage in 2023. So there are only very few countries that concern these Asian countries. And also, while some evidence showed that the inflation targeting regime is effective in reducing inflation, however, there is no empirical work that has found that inflation targeting has delivered some worse outcomes in these countries. So from a methodological point of view, these studies employ various techniques like propensity score matching, difference in difference, GMM. GMM means generalized method of moments, panel estimation. However, although some studies use the cross-sectional methodology, there might be some bias due to unobservable differences between these countries and potential endogeneity of IT adoption. And also, recent studies by, especially I'd like to mention this study by Brito and Bysted, which has been influenced, which is one of the influences of doing this paper, is that they used a two-step system GMM panel estimator that addresses the issues of simultaneity and omitted variables. So our study aims to contribute to this literature by employing efficient and flexible system GMM method to evaluate the effectiveness of inflation targeting. So about the data, we chose 12 countries in this region: Bangladesh, Cambodia, India, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Nepal, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Vietnam over the period of 21 years. And this choice of these countries has been based on the availability of data, as I have mentioned before. And the data source were mainly IMF's World Economic Outlook database and World Development Indicator database. So in this figure, we can see that that there is a similar trend between these chosen countries regarding the inflation targets. And also among the countries that we chose, there are 4 countries that has adopted inflation targeting in various period of time, such as Thailand adopted inflation targeting in 2000, Philippines in 2002, Indonesia in 2005, and India in 2016. So this is the variable description. I would not go into the details of this. So let's go on to the methodology. So we used the two-step system GMM that was developed by Ariane and Bober in 1995 to examine the impact in four macroeconomic variables. One is inflation, output, inflation volatility, and output volatility. So why this methodology? First of all, this methodology, this two-step system GMM, adjusts for small and homogeneous panel, which is like ours. And also, although B2 and Bysted employed a similar methodology and they employed system GMM and dynamic difference GMM both. However, this is in our context, the context is quite different because our sample here are number of countries. You can see that, that we have chosen 12 countries. However, the number of periods is 21. So this might result in some bias according to Rudman. So we had to squeeze the time period something lesser than the number of countries. So what we did is that we took 3 period of moving average. So it became total 7 periods on an average, which also helped to smooth out this temporary business cycle fluctuations in this in the macroeconomic indicators of these countries. So it has become ultimately a small panel of 7 periods, which denotes a small t large n panel as suggested by Rudman. So again, why system GMM over other methods? Because there are some issues related to difference GMM. If we take persistent variables like inflation targeting dummy, I'll come to this later. However, this issue is not applicable. This issue doesn't come in system GMM. So additional specifications include that we collapse the columns. There was a final sample correction we did to this model, which is called Windmere's correction. This is particularly to avoid the nickel bias. And then we lastly applied orthogonal deviation to this model. So our initial model looks like something like this. So the Y denotes actually dependent variable, and Y and T minus 1 is the lagged dependent variable. The lag is actually 1 period lag. IT denotes the dummy variable, whether the country has adopted IT or not in this particular year. This is the vector of possible endogenous regressors. And del captures the time effect. Eta captures the cross-country fixed effects, and Ni is the disturbance term. So to validate the model, we provided 3 tests. We actually wanted to confirm that the error terms are not serially correlated, the instruments are valid, and the changes in the instruments are uncorrelated with the fixed effect. So to ensure that there is no serial autocorrelation, we check that whether the error terms are not second order correlated, and to ensure that the instruments are valid, we employed the Hansen Hansen test of over-identifying limitations. And to confirm the exogeneity of the variables, we employed difference in Hansen C test. So this is the empirical finding of our first model, which had inflation rate as the dependent variable, lagged inflation rate, and as independent variable, it had inflation targeting dummy, lagged lag of inflation rate. High inflation dummy that covered the periods of high inflation over 5%, and GDP growth and lag GDP growth, and unemployment and interest rate. So these were the independent variables in the model. So we can see that also before going to the model, I'd like to clarify that the p values are in parentheses, and we'd like to confirm that the air test and Hansen test and all the other tests confirm that these three hypotheses are supported. So in this model, we can see that inflation dummy actually is significant in the OLS model. Then we applied another model where we control for the time effect. And in the third model, we control for, which is CTE-OLS, we control for country and time effects here. And finally, we applied the system GMM model. So in the first model, we can see that if we if a country takes up the inflation targeting policy, then the inflation rate reduces by 1.09. However, if we go to the time effect OLS model also resonates the same result. However, country and time effect OLS does not find inflation targeting dummy as a significant variable, which might be because of the bias that we can see here that in the R-squared values are quite high, so there might be some overfitting issues. That is why we go for the system GMM, which confirms the result that the inflation targeting is actually effective in reducing inflation rate. And the lagged another significant variable in all these models is a high inflation dummy. So we can hello. So we can conclude that the high inflation dummy is basically indicates the persistence of inflation in this region over the years. So in the second model, we put the real output growth variable in the dependent as the dependent variable, and we chose these variables as the independent variable. So these are just the opposite of the previous model. This is just the opposite of the previous model. So in this model, we can find that the inflation targeting the result is quite ambiguous because the inflation targeting dummy became significant in two of these models and came insignificant in two of these models. So we can conclude that we need further robustness check for this model. So I will conclude this result as ambiguous effect of output growth, ambiguous effect on the output growth. So in the third model, we took inflation volatility as the dependent variable and the other variables as independent variables. So here we can also see that inflation targeting does not have any significant effect on inflation volatility. And similarly, in the real output growth equation, real output volatility equation, we can conclude there is no significant effect of inflation on the real output growth volatility. So ultimately, we can conclude that although inflation targeting has a significant effect in reducing the inflation levels in these countries, the effect on the output growth is not confirmed, cannot be confirmed by this study. Also, inflation targeting does not have any significant impact on the volatility of inflation or in the volatility of output growth, which means that the cost of achieving inflation through inflation targeting policy is potentially low. So therefore, this study does not confirm or deny the theoretical trade-off between price stability and growth in these particular countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Anika. A very fascinating presentation by two young researchers on a very similar topic, inflation, monetary policy, and also inflation and extended pass-through. All are encompassing the different aspect of monetary policy. So we'd like to open the floor. So if you have any question or any feedback, any suggestion or any comment, please raise your hand, then we will go serially for your comment or feedback. So please feel free to raise your hand to make any comments or ask any question. This two paper is a little bit technical, so it might be a little difficult to understand everything in one presentation. But from Rapid, we'd like to encourage people to do some rigorous economic research. So I congratulate these two presenters. They have done an excellent job. So if you have any question about anything, if you are not clear about any idea or any results, you can also share your thought. Okay, so as you might be thinking about some questions, let me give some of my observation on these two papers. So what I understood from these two presentations. Um, so the first paper was on exchange rate pass-through on inflation. So this is a very important research, especially I think not much work done in case of Bangladesh, but for especially for food price for CPI, Bangladesh is heavily dependent on import. So exchange rate might have significant impact on inflation. But to what extent? To what extent exchange rate fluctuation impact on inflation? That's an empirical question, and that's the objective of the first paper to estimate this extent. It's really very good work, but I have some just observation and some might be suggestion. It's to me it's not actually clear the uh, measurement of a variable. Initially, I thought that your variable is measured yearly, but then when you were discussing about your impulse response graph, you were discussing in terms of quarter. So if you can have quarterly data, that would be excellent, but I don't think that for Bangladesh, you will have quarterly data for real GDP. You might have monthly data for uh, inflation, exchange rate, and all those financial variables, but not for real GDP. So if you can explain a little bit, probably it's in a paper, but it would be useful in your future presentation if you can give some idea how these variables are measured. And another thing is that you are using about your methodology, you are using co-integration regression, and to me, extended pass-through is like very short-term problem. If exchange rate if exchange rate depreciates or appreciates, it will actually change producers' expectation, and then they might adjust their prices instantly. And there might be some one-way adjustment to price. If exchange rate depreciates, then they may just adjust their price upward. But in case if exchange rate appreciates, then they may not adjust their price downward. So even though in case of Bangladesh, exchange rate always depreciates, so we don't have that experience of exchange rate appreciation. My point is the nature of the problem is very short-term nature. If you have exchange rate fluctuation, that should be reflected immediately on inflation, on price level. But since you are using co-integration, that's actually major long-run relationship. So definitely, if the inflation, the price level, and the exchange rate uh, will be correlated in long run. But your question, I think, if you can incorporate some framework like vector autoregression with some monthly or quarterly data, and this is the traditional methodology used in the literature. They use a VAR model, different type of VAR model. Generally, there's a one paper done by World Bank. They actually used factor augmented vector autoregression. Those type of methodology are very common, and the impulse response you estimated is based on vector error correction model. So that actually shows how the your adjustment to equilibrium is happening over some horizon. So I would like to see the impulse response estimated from vector autoregression. That would be more robust and more relevant to answer this question. So these are my few observations on paper 1. But I would like to congratulate you. This is a very important question and very relevant for Bangladesh, and not much work have done. And if you can uh, make it more rigorous, your methodology and your analysis, I think this paper uh, has a good potential to be published in a good macro journal. Thank you. For the second paper is also very fascinating, interesting work. But inflation targeting, I guess, is difficult for developing countries because data are not available readily. But for inflation targeting, whether it's effective or not to control inflation, I think it's more like country-specific study or event study could be more relevant. And also, so initially you are using data probably 21 periods, and then you are taking moving average, 3 years moving average, then it reduces to 7 periods. So the problem is if your data points is very small, then your parameters would, would be highly imprecisely estimated. And that's why you are actually not getting any significant results on key variables because of this small sample size. So I would suggest you, if you want to smooth some time series fluctuations, it might be useful to utilize some other smoothing functions like Hodrick-Prescott HP filter, or you can even you can even use 3 years moving average, but not like segmented 3 years moving average. So you can just continuously drop 1 year and take 1 year and do this moving average to smooth. But we have like established smoothing filter, HP filter, or there are some other filter in literature. So if you can use that filter, so that you don't lose observation from going 21 to 7 is significant reduction in observation. That actually reduces the precision of your estimate. So if you can try with that, I guess probably you might get more interesting results. And I'm just another thing. I'm just curious. Uh, why not using VAR again? So for macro questions, the more general model I can think of is like using VAR, since you have other variables, other macroeconomic variables. So why actually using so complicated system GMM? Or why not a very data-friendly method like VAR or some type of VAR? So I don't know whether you have tried it, or you might have some good reasons why you are not using VAR. And another thing is, so when you are using this system GMM or other model, so your coefficient, you are saying that, okay, the country that followed inflation targeting, they experience, suppose, 2 percentage point lower inflation rate in their country or something like that. But to what horizon? Is it like over 1 year they experience this reduction, or over like 1 quarter, or over 2 years? So it's actually difficult if you use GMM because it's just giving you the difference in intercept. So you cannot actually comment on the adjustment this country are experiencing, and you cannot say anything about country specific experience from those system GMM. So that's my observation, but thank you very much. It's a very interesting paper. It's also in terms of developing countries, there is a gap in literature that you try to preach. And if you can get some more robust results, I guess this paper can also be in a very good journal. So congratulations and very well done. So any questions or comments or anything you'd like to share? Okay, we have one question uh, from Husainuজ্জামান to Anika. So the question is, um, can you please explain again why system GMM was applied instead of GMM?
Yes, sure. The system, so there are two types of GMM basically, it's system GMM and difference GMM. So the problem with difference GMM is that when we take time periods, it differences from differences the suppose differences the statistic of one period with the consecutive one. So what happens to the time invariant variables is that, for example, India for example, took inflation targeting policy in 2016. So we write one for that. So, and then one for the subsequent periods. So when we use difference GMM, um, it will just make make the impact of inflation targeting 0 because it will just minus 1 from 1, so it will be 0. I hope I have been able to clarify that. I'm not sure. I think this will need some detailed explanation. I think I can provide you later the explanations.
Thank you. Thank you, Anika. Any other question or comments to our presenters?
So Anika, thank you. Very nice presentation. Both of the presenter, I must congratulate. Just one small question to Anika. Inflation is a very, hot topic nowadays in Bangladesh. So, from your experience, from the cross-country experiences in emerging developing countries, what lessons we can learn for Bangladesh?
Sir, I think in the context of Bangladesh, inflation targeting will require very high level of transparency and accountability. So I would like to suggest Bangladesh to, I just read a paper by Mishkin. So they do this in USA, that they do not explicitly inform the public about the inflation targeting, but they implicitly makes a target for their monetary policy. So um, Bangladesh can, I think, adopt this methodology. They do not need to explicitly share the target, but they will implicitly adjust the interest rates and other variables for that, targeting that.
Thank you.
Any other comment, Yusuf sir? Okay, so and any other comment from the presenters? Sajid Akhtar, do you have any response or anything I would like to share? Okay, we have another question. What are the instrumental variables you used in your model? I guess this is to Anika.
Yes, thank you. I used the lag of inflation targeting variable, and I did not use the exchange rate in the main model. However, I used it as a as an instrumental variable. So that was that, and lag of the other variables.
Okay, any other question? Okay, if you have no more questions, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. So as we
Sir,
start, Mehdi Hassan.
जी sir,
Please.
I want to share some my observation and suggestion to the first paper. First of all, I introduce myself. I'm Mohammed Mehdi Hassan. Currently, I'm actively engaged in Rapid to work some project. So congratulations to presenters, nicely presenting their work as a young researcher. I'm very much excited to have this presentation. So I want to share following Dr. Dean observation. For first paper, you may use ARDL model as a tool of VAR. Then you can have some consistent result in inflation in Bangladesh. And also I can share my observation that you may find some quarterly data. Recently, BBS published quarterly GDP, real GDP and nominal GDP. You find it in Bangladesh Bank website. Most probably November 2023. There are some 2016 to 2022. They published quarterly data, so you can use it in your paper. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your suggestion. I will take it as for consideration for my paper.
Okay, thank you so much, Mehdi, for your comment.
Thank you,
So, so we'd like to invite all of you, those who are here. So if you have your working paper or your finished paper, if you want to share it with other people and have some feedback, so we'd like to encourage you to contact us. We'll be organizing this webinar every month, and this platform is for young researchers. We'd like to connect all the young researchers, economists, development practitioners across Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is those who are working or working on these fields or studying in different universities. Our objective is to connect them, and our objective is to create an environment for mutual beneficial sharing our knowledge and helping each other to have better understanding of issues related to especially to Bangladesh development. So thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward for your presence again in our next month's webinar. Thank you.
So it will be posted in our website. So please follow our website for the further information. And if you want to make any presentation, you are most welcome. So it's basically targeting to young researcher, not only for Dhaka University, of any other university, public or private university. But we want to enhance the capacity of the young researcher, and we must grateful to FCDU for their support to initiate such kind of discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusuf sir, and thank you everyone, and have a very good night. Thank you.
রবি কিছু বলতেছিল? রবি হচ্ছে চেয়ারম্যান ডিপার্টমেন্ট অফ ডেভেলপমেন্ট স্টাডিজ চিটং ইউনিভার্সিটি।
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Actually, I was disconnected for network connection, poor network connections, but whatever I got realized that is actually that will be a very appreciating platform for new researchers as well as the fresh students. I think, sir, who are actually very much interested in doing research in the different fields of development, they can contribute their work, as well as your organizations, particularly Rapid, is doing very well in this regard. And I think, sir, we expect a collaboration research project or research related or study related project with development studies of Chittagong University and your organization Rapid, sir. Is it possible? Then, sir, we will be very much grateful to you, because our students are very much willing to engage. I'm very much fortunate that you very shortly informed, and I have tried to circulate this, sir. And thank you again, sir. You are very much pioneer to do this type of works actually. And I think, sir, particularly the students of different university in this country who are actually graduated from development studies or still students of development studies. I think they will be very much benefited from this project or from this endeavor. So thank you, sir. I would like to continue this. I would like to request you to continue this type of webinar for coming days. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Kaji Rabiul Islam. Looking forward to our collaboration. As you mentioned, we'll be happy to do so. So we'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
So, thank you.
Thank you and good night.
Good night. দিন আমাদের কি ইয়ে আছে সিনিয়র টিম মিটিং আছে?
মনে হয় না স্যার,
আচ্ছা, ওকে।
একটু স্যারকে একটু ফোন করে একটু
আমি ওই হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে মেসেজ দিছি, কোনো রিপ্লাই পাইনি। ঠিক
হ্যাঁ,
আছে,
ওকে
ওকে, থ্যাংক ইউ। শহীদুল, থ্যাংক ইউ।
থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার।
Thank you all.